How do free trade agreements shape foreign investment in Vietnam? Over the past 2 decades, Vietnam's international economic integration strategy has largely relied on expanding its network of free trade agreements. From ASEAN-based FTAs to new generation agreements such as the CPTPP, EVFTA, RCEP, and UKVFTA, Vietnam is now participating in a comprehensive FTA system that varies widely in terms of geographic coverage and commitment scope. The total number of active FTAs has enabled Vietnam to access major markets, while compelling the domestic economy to upgrade its regulatory framework in order to comply with international commitments. The new generation FTAs differ in 2 key aspects. First, the scope of commitments has broadened beyond tariff elimination. They now encompass services, investment, government procurement, intellectual property, and technical standards, which are decisive for sustainability of value chains. Second, rules of origin and enforcement mechanism have become significantly more stringent. Preferential treatment is no longer automatic but contingent upon enterprises proving the origin of inputs, production processes, and compliance criteria. These distinctions transform FTAs into instruments not only for attracting capital, but also for filtering investment based on quality. Regarding capital flows in this context, the latest data confirm that Vietnam's inbound FDI not only remains resilient, but continues to rise in terms of disbursement. According to the Ministry of Planning and Investment, FDI disbursement in 2024 reached a record of approximately $25.35 billion, up 9.4% year-on-year, with manufacturing and processing accounting for the overwhelming share. Early 2025 figures also demonstrate strong momentum, with total registered capital reaching nearly $11 billion by the end of Q1 2025, marking a sharp increase compared to the same period the year before. These figures indicate that despite global volatility, Vietnam continues to be a magnet for foreign investment, largely due to its FTA-driven competitive advantage. However, it is critical to acknowledge the downside risks. A gap remains between paper-based benefits and actual gains. Many FTAs require amendments to domestic laws, for example, in competition, intellectual property and environmental standards, while simultaneously demanding strong administrative, customs, and logistic capacity to translate preferential treatment into real outcomes. The disparity among localities in terms of infrastructure, procedures, and business support services result in investment flowing to regions where incentives can be leveraged more efficiently, rather than spreading evenly nationwide. Furthermore, having export concentration in a few major markets, particularly the United States, creates vulnerability. When exports to the US account for a large share of total turnover, policy changes by the partner may trigger significant adverse impacts. FTAs influence investment decisions through 3 key channels: direct reduction of export costs, tariff preferences, mitigation of long-term policy risks through legally binding commitments, such as investment protection and regulatory transparency. Enhance integration into regional supply chains, access to inputs and components from FTA members to certify rules of origin. Together, these channels allow manufacturing projects in Vietnam to improve post-tax profit margins, shorten time to market, and reinforce investment stability. In other words, FTAs elevate the strategic value of locating production in Vietnam beyond merely reducing labor costs. Evidence shows that FDI into Vietnam is shifting from cost-driven investment toward technology-intensive and compliance-demanding sectors. Strongly benefiting industries include electronics, high-tech manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, high-value-added agricultural processing, and textile garment segment align with rules of origin. However, not all sectors gain equally. Textile and agricultural sectors that fail to improve localization rates or secure compliant raw material sources may lose preferential access. Sectors heavily dependent on the domestic market may see slower benefits due to rising compliance costs. This requires both investors and policymakers to view FTAs as tools for strategic investment restructuring rather than merely short-term tariff incentives. Vietnam's FTA framework is an essential lever for attracting FDI in both scale and quality. Converting FTA preferences into tangible benefits for investment projects depends on three factors: supply chain design aligned with rules of origin, institutional capacity and logistics infrastructure, and investors' risk management strategies. When both regulators and investors effectively implement this solution, FTAs will evolve from a list of formal commitments into a powerful mechanism to accelerate investment restructuring, upgrade technology, and enhance sustainable export value from Vietnam.